Well, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Gwendolyn Borick. I'm the president of Focus for our community, unity, and support. I'm joined here today with Dan Webb of Catalyst Research, and today is our 2023 virtual town hall and annual report where we will review this past year's goals, outcomes, objectives, our reach to our local community, as well as some highlights of what we've done throughout the year in our youth outreach programs, as well as other outreach programs to connect with our community. So Dan, thank you for joining us today, and let's get into it.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you. So, every year I draw up a letter that just kind of addresses our local change makers here in our community. And as you can imagine, if you're here, if you're reading this, which was presented actually at our annual awards reception and fundraiser last year, it's just an opportunity for, me to show a little bit on my perspective on, what I see based on the past year, and maybe just a plea and an ask of my community to hopefully stay connected with us and to prioritize the youth of our local community. So, dear Western New York Changemakers, 2023 has been a revealing year of continued struggles within our youth as they attempt to build resiliency in an uncertain world as balancing on the edge of social and economic collapse. According to the 2021 Clyde Survey of Youth, grades 8, 10, and 12 in our Lancaster-Depew community, 54% of youth reported that there aren't any adults in the neighborhood to talk about something important. 38% of youth reported they're no good at all. 27% of youth reported that they sometimes think life is not worth it. 58% of youth reported that there's no one in their neighborhood that they said that they were proud of them for them doing something good. 36% reported they have been sad or depressed most of the time. 24% think they're a failure. Those are incredible stats and, obviously sad stats, so the need for our community level support is really greater than ever. Our youth, they need our help. So what has become of their cherished time to be young and innocent was robbed by them by this global pandemic, and social media really has become their savior. Millions of eyes are watching as they watch each other attempt to be socially accepted by the masses, and the pressure is incomprehensible. The continued uneasiness of the future haunts our youth as they try to plan for their next steps after they graduate. Yet really mourn the loss of some of their friends right here in the community who struggle with vaping addictions, marijuana use disorder, that's causing schizophrenic episodes, binge drinking, and really the fate of losing a friend to fentanyl-laced marijuana. Nothing is safe anymore, and they know it. Parents have been led to believe that because marijuana was legalized on a non-medicinal level, that local shops that are slinging it out the back door, or even local, Indian reservation is safe, and they have no idea how dangerous these products actually are. So if you aren't buying marijuana products from a New York State licensed dispensary, which, at this time that we're recording this, there's only 2 in Erie County, no one can guarantee your safety. Cartels created their networks in New York years before it was even legalized, and with current open borders, the network has expanded. So fentanyl is killing people at a higher rate than pre-pandemic levels. It's also been reported across New York to be found in marijuana products. So marijuana will be our next pandemic for our youth if we don't educate ourselves on the basic facts of what's happening around us. They're screaming for authentic connection and guidance. They want us to help them. They want our support. And if we would just listen, they would be seen, they would be heard. Our future exists now. So 2024 will not be easy for any of us, but that's why you're reading this. That's why I'm talking about this. That's why you're here. And you are doing something about it. You're willing to prioritize the fate of our youth by standing in their place and providing the safe space for them to learn and grow. And you have been the reason why we succeeded and will continue to succeed going forward. So thank you for your time, talents, and treasure. And thank you for our faith here in Focus. I do want to thank our board of directors. And our mission here at Focus is to prevent and reduce youth substance use within our community by reducing community risk factors that encourage substance use and promoting community protective factors that minimize the odds of youth substance use. Our vision is a drug-free community and a drug-free youth. Our tactics are evidence-based, data-driven environmental strategies, federally approved strategic prevention framework, where we create youth-centered drug-free communities. I'm going to give it up to Dan right now as he talks about how we get things done and our framework.
Thanks, Gwendolyn. And thanks for having me. My name is Dan Webb. I am co-owner of Catalyst Research in the Buffalo area. And we have been doing evaluation work for 20 years now. This is actually the month of that marks our 20-year sort of anniversary of being in the field. Evaluation is essentially working with any program. It could be grant funded or not, but the idea is having somebody who is outside of the organization that is implementing programming and implementing activities to provide a sort of objective look at how that organization or entity is implementing their programs. Are they doing their implementations with fidelity? Are they reaching out to all aspects of the community? Are these organizations meeting their goals in terms of reductions in substance use, those sorts of things? And the good news is that focus is firmly entrenched in the Lancaster Depew community as the sort of the go-to and one of the go-to sources for prevention information related to substance use, especially among substance use, especially among youth. Sorry, we'll have to clean that one up in post-production. But the idea, all joking aside, is that this work that the coalition does is all informed through data. So one of the main aspects that we as an external evaluator works on is data analysis and reporting. So I'll talk a little bit about that on the next page. But before we get there, I think what we want to talk about here is how the coalition gets things done in the community. So there are a few prescribed, and by prescribed, I sort of mean best practices for planning and getting things done in the community that are sort of handed down by the federal government and funding agencies that help support our work. And the three main things that we'll talk about right here, fairly briefly, are first the 12 community sectors. So you see here we have in the center of this top graphic, we have local problems require local solutions. And then you see there are 12 little icons around that center image. Each one of those represents what is called a community sector in our planning framework. And it goes everywhere from parents through your business, media. I'll just kind of go through each of them here since the font is a little small. We have religious fraternal organizations, schools, youth serving organizations, law enforcement, healthcare professionals, state, local, tribal governments, other substance abuse organizations in the community that are doing sort of the same work or similar work to focus, civic volunteer organizations, and of course, last but certainly not least, our youth. So one of the big things that we want to do and focus is really good at is getting youth involved and incorporating the youth voice into planning and activities. Also, so the sort of idea of changing communities through these 12 sectors is that you bring everybody to the table and you make sure that everybody at the table has ownership over what is being done in the community to address substance use or risk and protective factors in the community. And we're fortunate in the Lancaster Depew community. I live in Depew, so not only am I an external evaluator, but I'm also a member of this community. We really do have great support, especially from schools and our youth and our law enforcement. And there's a lot of really great connections here that without especially like our school connections, we would not be able to collect data through our youth surveys, that sort of thing. So the idea of the 12 community sectors is bringing all of these different groups of folks together to sort of align and take ownership over making change in the community. The strategic prevention framework is it's the planning framework that is sort of advocated by the federal government for us to use as community coalitions. And I'll say this about the strategic prevention framework. It's not a linear process. Really, the spirit of the strategic prevention framework is that you continually revisit your data on your community, and you continually use that information to inform your implementation of activities. And then you implement your activities, you look at the success, and you make adjustments, and you sort of rinse and repeat, whether that's year over year or every 6 months, that sort of thing. So it's not a linear process, but you can see here we've moved from assessment to capacity building, bringing the right people to the table, planning and implementing, and then last but not least, evaluating our work. Although many times these things do happen in sort of a linear fashion, you assess what needs to happen, you create a plan, and you implement. You also have to think about sort of looking back on the successes and informing future, activities and implementations based on what has happened in the past. So that is one of the other things that we used. Last but not least is the 7 strategies for community change. These 7 strategies are providing information, enhancing skills of community members, changing the physical design of the community, providing support for community members, enhancing access and reducing barriers to supports in the community, changing consequences for undesired behavior, and modifying and changing policies. So, smoke-free ordinances or policies in schools related to substance use, that sort of thing. So all of these things are the 12 community sectors, strategic prevention framework, 7 strategies for community change are all used by the coalition to decide which evidence-based programs, research-based programs to implement in the community. And Gwendolyn will talk more about what kinds of programs were implemented a little bit later. But next, what we're going to talk about, as I mentioned, if you could go to the next slide, please, Gwendolyn. Thank you. There we go. Yeah, so one of the things that we, in terms of data, I was talking about the importance of data and data-driven planning and understanding of what's happening in the community. So one of the big things that, and Focus has been sort of at the forefront of asking these questions. One of the big things that we talked about this year and have talked about in previous years is sort of the freight train coming that is marijuana use and legalized marijuana use. And not necessarily what that means for adults in a vacuum, but really what that means for communities and what that means for youth. And unfortunately, there are, regardless of your feelings about, marijuana, medicinal marijuana, recreational marijuana, there are truths about marijuana use and among youth that are science-based and pretty much indisputable at this point. And mainly there is, and we'll get to this at the bottom point, the human brain develops until age 25, and there's recent research that shows that might even go even a little longer, into like 26, 27 years old. And the basic idea is that the longer that you can push off the onset of substance use among youth, the less likely that that particular youth will have developmental issues, will have social issues, will have physical issues, mental health issues. Really, there is a clear and research-based connection between early onset of substance use and problems as you go through life. So what we wanted to focus on as one of our main data dives this year was looking at what the sort of availability of marijuana means for those developing brains in our community. And so what we did here was develop a focus group protocol that was implemented in Depew schools. And we really wanted to talk about different delivery methods of marijuana and the perceived safety of different delivery methods, and also the way kids access marijuana. And so the three big takeaways here, and Gwendolyn, please feel free to jump in if you'd like to say anything about these. But the first big finding is that marijuana is readily available to youth. So whereas alcohol was commonly by far in a way the most commonly used and accessible substance among youth, you just think about beer fridges in garages, and home bars, and restaurants or bars that don't ID, all these different places that youth could get alcohol. That sort of thing is happening, or will could potentially be happening with dispensaries and on-site consumption areas, if that ever comes to fruition. The availability is going to be there. And you told us that parents, friends, siblings, parties, social media, and social groups are common sources of marijuana. So and basically what I'm thinking to myself there is, what didn't we cover with those groups, right? Those are all of your main groups. And social media throwing that on top is just adding to the availability of marijuana. So not only is it available, it's available in different forms. So there's edibles now. Of course, there's your traditional flower that you smoke. There are vaped forms, oils, and resins and things like this that you put into vaporizers. And really what that's showing is it's not unlike the different forms of alcohol, right? You have beer, you have hard liquor. Of course, you don't, maybe there's edible alcohol. I'm sure there is somewhere, but the idea is they all have different, as with alcohol, if you drink vodka, it's going to have much different effect on you. A bunch of vodka, different effect than if you have a couple of beers, right? So that's the same sort of thing we're finding here with delivery methods for marijuana. And going along with that is that youth have limited knowledge about the safety of marijuana use and the varying forms of taking in marijuana into your system. So one of the findings that we saw here is this idea of marijuana being laced with other substances if that marijuana is obtained from somewhere other than a dispensary. And while there have been a few reports of fentanyl being in marijuana, other substances are much more likely to be laced with fentanyl, but that's not to say that it can't happen with marijuana. So students are sort of aware of this potential risk, and then Gwendolyn talked about that at the very beginning. This sort of differential perception of harm, for example, thinking that vaping marijuana is less safe than edible marijuana. I know that was one of the findings that we had here. For youth and young adults, there really is no safe way to consume marijuana even on a semi-regular basis. It can rewire the brain. It can have long-term effects on the brain, and like I said, affect development over time. As you can see here in the second paragraph near the end, impacts on the developing brain and academic success, increase in mental health issues, and the potential for risky behaviors and addiction are well-documented consequences of continued marijuana use. And that's not including some of the scarier things that can potentially happen with over decades of use with schizophrenia and increased sort of psychotic episodes and that sort of thing. So what does that tell us? So all of this comes together in what really amounts to the need for more education, not within one particular sector of the community. As we looked at that previous slide, we saw, the 12 little sectors around the community. There is a need for some sort of education, some sort of outreach within every one of those sectors. And so, as we say here, this was perhaps the clearest theme that emerged from the data. So, we could reach out, and we need to reach out to parents and let them know not only is marijuana safe compared to alcohol, like the safer alternative, that sort of thing, but you can be held liable for providing marijuana to youth, having parties where marijuana is available, that sort of thing. Youth can benefit from learning about the differential harms of delivery methods and the effects of all of them on their developing brains. And also community awareness, because what we're really about here in the coalition business, we're really in the business of changing community norms. So that means that, we want to align all of the folks in the community to have similar feelings about certain issues like youth marijuana use. We don't want parents to be giving marijuana to youth. We don't want dispensaries to be selling to youth. We don't want youth to have access to, stuff that has been brought here, illegally from various different sources. And so getting out into the community and sort of, because the horse is sort of out of the barn with marijuana. So now we're in some ways going to be playing chase with an issue that is very well funded and is going to be hard to battle. So there is a need for us, and it's becoming clear it's not just a Lancaster thing, it's not just a Depew thing, it's a national thing. Marijuana and the effects on youth, it's here, and it's something that we need to address. So that's really what I have to say about the sort of our main data collection exercise for this past year. And I think it was really eye-opening to see the differential perceived harm among youth for different marijuana delivery methods, and still the degree to which especially many adults would benefit from perhaps a better understanding, or at least some more discussion on the effects of marijuana on youth. So that's what I have. Thanks, Gwendolyn. I'll toss it back to you.
Thanks, Dan. Obviously I concur with our data. I mean, this is, I was the one working with these students during the focus group, and we talked about branding. We talked about the typical brands of maybe even the vapable THC that they're using, and the type of edibles that they've seen. And it's just it's the same old story of the big like pharmaceutical companies, big mega cap companies. They know how to market and jewel, but got busted marketing to youth, and they lost that big lawsuit. So it's no different now with this marijuana market. We have edible gummy bears, edible gummy worms, edible like Rice Krispie treats, chocolate that looks like Hershey bars, nerds on a rope. Like, it's all stuff, Sour Patch Kids, all the products that you would see on a candy shelf, you would see at a dispensary or at a vape shop right now who's selling these types of things. And just last week, so we're talking the second week of December, there was another report of a school in Western New York where kids, young students brought more edibles into the school. And kids were throwing up and having some episodes. So in this last little paragraph where one of our goals now out of this data is for that community education is safe storage. We did do a excuse me, we did a campaign earlier this year, like a take it to the box, safe storage type, like a type of campaign, working with other local coalitions. We had billboards out, we were doing take back campaigns, lawn signs, you know, a lot of marketing put out there to educate the public. Like marijuana is now a drug if it gets in the hands of, you know, someone who is not of legal age and their brain is not capable of handling these types of substances. So you have, if you are a parent, which anybody, you know, 40 and over at this point, they're saying is the largest group for people coming into these dispensaries or coming into these vape shops and grabbing these type of products. So that puts you in kind of that parental range, you know. I mean, I don't personally, I'm, you know, going to be 44. I have two teenagers, you know, so I would like to assume that anybody within this area or that range, you know, you're that market right now that is out there exploring these types of these marijuana products. You're the biggest ones that are hitting the streets and going into those places. So you know, that is your prerogative, but you have to be educated on the fact that if your kids get a hold of these things, the THC content on some of the concentrated things like Dan was talking about, the it's wax, it's shatter, you know, it's like this crystallized one, there's wax, there's like you know, oils, there all these things have concentrates up to 99.9%. And even just your regular marijuana, your regular flowers, those are, you know, 10 times stronger than what, you know, was on the market even 20 years ago. So the it's not so much the yeah, it's a lot of the same products versus these concentrates, of course, that are out there, which are super hazardous to our youth. But even just your regular flowers are way stronger than, you know, we had when we were growing up. So it is not the same weed that we had. It's not the same marijuana products. And those concentrates are really is the most significant danger. Also, you know, the fact that in my opening letter that I said that, you know, some of these youth have actually lost someone to fentanyl mixed with their marijuana. That was a local student in Lancaster, Depew, a 10th grader. So this 10th grader had to mourn her friend. You know, this is, you know, there are reports that are happening in New York where they're finding, you know, fentanyl-tainted marijuana products. This has been happening for the past couple of years. You know, I worked with Congressman Langworthy this year, Sheriff Garcia, everybody from really Congress all the way down in a community roundtable. And we talked about, you know, that the cartel networks were set up way before even New York was legalized on a recreational basis for marijuana. And, you know, we go to DC every year. We get to learn about these trends, you know, talking with the DEA, talking with the ONDCP and all of our federal department heads. And they tell us the trends that are happening. And they were the ones that said the cartels were in New York 2 years before it was even passed on a recreational basis. And now with, you know, immigration is highest at ever. We also now are seeing this on our borders in on Niagara County and Erie County on our bridges. So, you know, Congressman Langworthy's been pretty open about that. Sheriff Garcia was open about that. They're finding fentanyl in with huge loads of marijuana right here on our borders. So this will be our continued focus moving forward, and this will be our continued you know, priority to educate the parents in our community. And you know, one thing I want to show is actually something that we created on account of some of these things. So, you know, there's always opportunities to do billboards. There's opportunities to do a bunch of different type of digital advertising. So one of our campaigns this year, legal could still mean lethal, and we targeted that you know 30 to 50 age range of local residents, and on their TVs, their streaming channels, as well as you know, digital targeting them, that if they were on the internet searching for edibles in Western New York, because maybe they are a parent or they're an adult that chooses to, you know, utilize these type of products in their life, we wanted to pinpoint them, we wanted to target them and educate them. And actually, this was a video that we created with the help of Town Square, and just to showcase, you know, that and this is happening. And we reached, about 90,000 people. That is our target demographic right now, parents in Western New York. So take a look. So I just want to thank even Dan Webb for that. He created that graphic for us that was showing the escalated rate of fentanyl, just skyrocketing, over the past couple of years over everything else. And, and that's all that data was from the National Institute of Health. So, Dan, thank you, Catalyst Research, thank you for that graphic and in putting the data in the hands of our parents. I think that's so important.
Of course,
So
yeah. Just
yeah,
one
go
thing
ahead,
on that.
Dan.
I just wanted to let people know if you do watch that again,
When we first
what we're
arrived,
looking at there is cumulative number of overdoses. So it's always going to be increasing, right? So it just takes the last year and adds the current year, and that gives you, kind of your next data point. And what you see, if you watch that video again, which I would suggest you do, is that fentanyl overtook everything else in a matter of, 10 years, certainly, if not 5, right? And this is because if people are not familiar with fentanyl's a horse tranquilizer or an elephant tranquilizer, right? I forget what the initial use of it was, but it's intended to tranquilize large animals.
Mhm.
And so, and I'm sure folks who are watching this may have seen the amount that is lethal can fit on the tip of a pencil, right? The sharpened tip of a pencil. And so this is not the sort of thing that you can really mess around with at all. And like Gwendolyn said, if you just hit the one, and Gwen's bringing this up here now, if you just hit the one, let's just see here, 287,000 we were at. And you can see even from here, 2019, you don't even need to go back, Gwendolyn. If you look at where it is right here, 2019, you can see the sort of, it's not quite exponential, but the increase really takes off starting in about 2018, 2019. We can probably if you do go back a little bit more, if you've got this here, so you can see how it comes up. We're looking at the yellow line. Cocaine, heroin, and benzodiazepines, that's your Xanax and your Klonopin, those sorts of things, were your traditional overdose substances. Heroin also sort of started to drop off, but fentanyl, starting in about 2015 there, started to really take off. And then, year over year, it just surpassed all of the others, so that when you get to, it's not quite the if you total cocaine and heroin, you're at like 330,000, but that's only 50,000 away from what fentanyl does. So it's almost as many as the next two substances combined. So I thought it would be worth just tearing that chart apart a little bit to look at. And it's also very interesting that, sure, fentanyl has gone up to the top and is a massive concern, but we're losing, and these aren't all necessarily fatal overdoses, but we're seeing so many overdoses, hundreds of thousands of cumulative overdoses across all of these substances. So this is not just a one substance concern, it's a cultural concern, and fentanyl is certainly chief among those concerns. So that's just a little bit of additional context.
Yeah, thanks, Dan. I mean, I know personally people who have overdosed and died from fentanyl laced with cocaine, So Again, it's just I appreciate this graphic. I appreciate, just us being able to get that information out there. You know, we're trying. We are definitely trying here out there. As far as like just some of the highlights, that we're looking at, a lot of what we do is outreach programs. We do community events, educational sessions for our business community, our local community, to try to educate them on, what we're doing and what others are doing to help create a healthier community. And we do that twice a year with, just some of our impact conferences, and we have multiple youth outreach events throughout the year. Here's some of our stats on social media, the social media level. Like I said, we did a couple billboards last year. They're great in the sense that, they're big, they're out there, that you can potentially get a reach of over 1 million people because they can track how many people drive down the street, but how many people actually, read it, how many people get engaged with it. Where digital campaigns they're strategically, they're sniper targeted towards specific audiences within a specific area code, a demographic, age. You can do, even average median income in a household when it comes to digital campaigns. So, we're pretty proud of some of the reaches that we've had. We did do a digital campaign for our youth during the summer to be able to reach them and promote GlowFest, our annual music festival. And then the other digital campaign, as you're going to see in that total number of almost 100,000 people reached, those were the parents that we were trying to engage in that actual educational video. For radio, thankfully, in promoting GlowFest, we had spots with WYRK, and live spots on the radio there. We had live spot with Issues and Views that also goes across all Town Square channels, which is like WYRK. There's a whole bunch of them. 96.1, The Breeze. And that show was live. It was a half-hour show being interviewed, talking about what we were doing with GlowFest. And really about the same as far as newspapers. It's a lot of local Lancaster Bee type of outreach. TikTok, we were able to still grow our followers on TikTok. Those are going to be kids specifically in Lancaster and Depew. So it's a process. Even Instagram, we're pushing those up, and excuse me, and followers on Facebook. It's always a process. During the summer when we had GlowFest, kids were entered into door prize raffles if they followed us on TikTok, if they followed us on Instagram, and it's just a way for us to broaden our reach with our specific demographic of being able to talk to those youth. So some of our highlights, and I'm going to show you actually our Facebook page in a second. We in the spring, we interviewed, we have a panel for each of these conferences. This is our outreach to the business community. This helps us not only create a name for ourselves, some legitimacy to our organization, but hopefully some sustainability through our partnerships. Part of that strategic framework is capacity, and sustainability is right in the middle. And our goal is to be obviously sustainable long after this federal funding is over. We are on year 5, technically, of a 5-year grant, which means that, we have to reapply through the ONDCP, through the CDC's website, or through the CDC. And, it's reapplying for this grant all over again. It's going to be a lot of work, probably 100 pages all over again. And you just don't know if you're going to get it the next time around. And it doesn't even, they won't, it's just getting through the door, honestly, getting through the gate, because there's a lot of different specifics and parameters and technological requirements. And if one thing glitches out, if one thing goes wrong, you're not going to get through the gate for them to even review your grant. And that's a freeze in funding now for what that potential new window would be for another 5 years. So our goal is always to, in the beginning of this, the sustainability plan was to raise $20,000 every year, so that at the end of that 5 years, we'd have at least $100,000. We could create, the area's first foundation for youth addiction prevention, and it would be invested through the Greater Community Foundation, where 5.25% comes back to us every year. And that, $5,250 would at least cover the website, email, phone line, and marketing, just for the at least for the events that we could do for our youth, right? So no staff, nothing, bare minimum. We'll talk about that later, but part of getting that awareness about who we are and in building those potential partnerships, we do these conferences. We had one of the presidents, Lucas Salino. They do tons from Salino Plumbing. They do a ton. They have not-for-profit contests to wrap their trucks. It gets exposure for that not-for-profit. Kate Glazer, she's the founder of Hope Rises Network on Channel 4. She does a show and constantly is raising money for, just like pediatric cancer, a ton of stuff. She gets behind. She has millions of followers. She raises hundreds of thousands of dollars a year for local not-for-profits. Dwight Lowe, recently one of the managers of People Inc., also started Home Beneath Our Feet, another inner city non-for-profit for youth to learn how to garden and then ultimately sell those vegetables, to be entrepreneurs. We had Andrew Bennett, Vice President of Children's Oishei Hospital of Buffalo Foundation. Again, they do a ton in raising millions of dollars to help the children there at Children's Hospital. Later on in the year, we had Mercedes Wilson, TV host and CEO. She's on a WKBW. She has she's another force in the media. Lisa Travato, president of 50 Fabulous Women Giving Circle. These women, they come together, they pool money together of their own, and then that they actually interview people to grant out to non-for-profits. So it's like a pitch contest, and then they fund those not-for-profits. So she talked about that. She's also, one of the directors at WNED Public Broadcasting. We had Kimberly LaRusso. She's the founder and TV host of Channel 4 Sweet Buffalo Show. She talked about what she's doing in the community, how she leverages media and to help not-for-profits of her choice. And then we had our Assemblyman Mike Norris just talk about some of his community givebacks and objectives. And then obviously most recently we had our Impact Awards where we were honoring a whole slew of community leaders from Chick-fil-A, Margaret Wood from Wood Accounting, Congressman Langworthy, Scoops Village Grill, Jay Lupini from Depew High School, Shell Moore, Erie County Department of Health, Jody Altman, Kids Escaping Drugs, Gianna Reineck from Depew High School, Zoe Kaminsky, Canisius College, Kate Glazer, Hope Rises Network, Trina Burris, she's actually the president and CEO of United Way, and then Sister Janice of Response to Love Center. So I just want to show you actually some of the highlights, that we had with, some of this amazing, outreach this year. Part of that was an opportunity for me to actually get on the Channel 4 news. But let's see here. So we did create like a collab with Sweet Buffalo Show. We did a bunch of interviews throughout the summer that we're launching now that were filmed live, and we had a couple different perspectives. So what you're seeing right here is just a little tidbit of we had a youth perspective, my perspective, a business perspective, and then what's happening on the streets, which was Jody Altman from Kids Escaping Drugs. But just take a look at one of our youth right here in Depew, and just the amazing things that she's saying.
Today's world is not always easy, but our friends at Focus are teaming up with our youth to ensure kids are staying away from drugs and alcohol. We'll tell you more up next.
I'm not going to show the whole video, but just this is great exposure for us.
I'm here today with Emmett Hunter, a high school student at Depew High School, and I'm so grateful to have you today on the Sweet Buffalo Show. And we're going to be talking today about the difficulties that teens face in high school. And I hear you're doing a great job with our friends at Focus to help prevent students from, getting hooked on drugs and alcohol. So I'm just going to ask you a few questions today about what it's like being a teenager in this time.
Awesome. Thank you for having me. Being a teenager is kind of cool in today's modern world where we have a lot of access to social media and instant messengers and being able to have easy access to hang out with friends. But at the same time, the advancements in technology aren't everything that everyone says it is. It's not as perfect as many people would imagine.
So that's just a little clip of what Emmett was doing. But we created these collaborations. We did that with Sweet Buffalo Show. All of this stuff is available on our Facebook page. Obviously we were promoting not only their perspectives, we were doing this on Instagram as well. And then, over the summer, like I said, we had a mini golf tournament. We had Glow Fest. This is one of our impact conferences at Stolot, with some of our guests, and Stolot's an amazing venue. So again, it's just, these are always opportunities for us to to really showcase like what we're trying to do here in the community building. And I just wanted to show at least a couple of pictures of Glow Fest. We were at this right here. We were at this was ITAC. We were partnered up with ITAC, the Iroquois District, Coalition. We were at Erie County, the Fall Fest as well. Where's all my pictures? Here we go. This was all of our amazing pictures from our award ceremony yesterday. Again, our impact conference. These right here are from when we were at the Fall Festival. We were next to a lot of different of the county things. We did open houses at all the different schools to showcase, who we are for every middle school and high school for Lancaster and Depew. We were at the open houses, giving parents everything that they needed for resources and supplies. And then even for Glow Fest, our huge, music festival that we did over the summer, all these pictures are from Glow Fest. And actually, I was able to talk about Glow Fest even most recently on Channel 4 Daytime Buffalo Show, just to kind of highlight some of our outreach programs. And look at that. I mean, we had over 100 youth, more stuff for the kids to do. And we gave away, $1,000 and to another TikTok talent takeover contest winner. So, all we're trying to do is just engage kids, get them out there, hope that we can not only engage them, but just bring them to a place where they're being supported and educated on what's happening there in the local community. So I just, when it comes to like our actual youth and what we're doing here, it can't be done like alone. We have these legacy partners that we built to be able to support us, organization like TOPS, Chick-fil-A, 99 Brick Oven, Robert E. Schaff Limited Insurance and Real Estate, all these individuals, these amazing families from also Deb Glani, Bake on Buffalo, Sally Steyer, the Clarity Group, Mike Kelleher, Hovig and Willig, the Brusso family, the Glenn Jackson family, the Weiss family, the LaBounty family, and more gold level partners like the Rotary Club of Lancaster Depew, Nickel City Realty, the Lancaster Teachers Association, the Depew Teachers Association, law offices of Jessica Culpit, Amherst Lutheran Church, Prince of Peace Lutheran Church, and then these individuals as well. So what we do, we definitely can't do alone. And, these are the people that will continue to support us moving forward, funding or not. And that's exactly why we create these certain levels of sustainability. So in regards to our actual funding update, I'll go to full screen here. We are, again, our goal is always 20K a year. We're at 30% of the goal for this year. We're still getting that 125K a year for the federal community grant. It will end in the end of September of 2024. And, we have to submit our continuation grant by the spring of 2024 to see if we could even potentially get that next round of funding. But that does actually, that covers a lot of our costs for evaluations, surveys. We're doing a next round of surveys for our 8th, 10th, and 12th grade students in Lancaster and Depew as we speak, so that happens every 2 years. Every other year, we do focus groups and key informant interviews. So the report that Dan was talking about, that was our in-between year, right? So we get our quantitative data, which is a lot, the 8th, 10th, and 12th grade students. Then we kind of look at that and we're like, all right, well, what does the report not say? And that's where we come up with questions to ask during focus groups. And again, Dan Kettle's research, they help us with that. They tell me, this is how you can ask this. We don't want to mislead. You can't lead them. You have to really allow them to, you in your focus group, allow them to speak freely without leading, so that you can get quality data at that point, that qualitative data. And then boom, we're going to be looking at this next round of data next year. And as we break that out, we're going to constantly move. Like Dan said, it's never ending. It's always moving. That strategic prevention framework model. Sometimes you're focusing on this part, you're always focusing on really all aspects of that model at all times. So, just a few things like, ways for you to be able to help us. You could become a legacy partner on any level, of platinum level or gold level. You could become a community contributor. That's actually one thing I did want to show was, our website. I want to show as well, like on LinkedIn, follow us on LinkedIn. A lot of our business community and our impact conferences, that's where they find us. When we're promoting all the honorees for our impact conference, all the businesses that were supporting us. That's where we did that. And, in less than a year, we started an actual LinkedIn account and we have, up to 111 followers. So, not too bad, for, a 12-month period. And those are strategic partners that, can make a big influence for us in creating sustainability and capacity. One of the members of, People's Inc. team through one of those impact conferences, Nicole Shields. She came to the conference. She's like, this is something close to me. Can I help you? I live in the Depew community. Now Nicole Shields is actually our secretary. So that's how it works though, right? Getting out there. So yes, we've built that up, and back to our website. So, and I'm just making sure you can see that. So on our website, it's ultimately our greatest resource. So one of the things I do want to show is that we created a new way for you to be able to get support, and it's through a national partner, and they're the ones that help create a substance use risk assessment quiz. And so a lot of our marketing now has postcards like, is your teen at risk? And it's found right here on our research page. And then if you were to hit this start, it's going to take you to drugfree.org. This Partnership to End Addiction is an amazing organization. They provide free support, absolutely free support to parents, youth on multiple substances. You can pop into actual support calls on a weekly basis, totally free, overseen by a clinician for solutions-based problem, like a solution-based need for whatever your problem may be for your youth or teen, right? So you take this assessment, it takes about 5 or 6 minutes to complete. It goes through a lot of different, aspects of what could be a potential risk for your child, and it gives you tools. So my suggestion is, utilize our website as a tool. All of our data is accessible on the tool. So every time that we did these surveys, every 2 years, they're there. All of the surveys are there. All of our comprehensive combined reports for our focus groups, key informant interviews are available. You're going to see that they've been prepared by Catalyst Research. That's Dan Webb. He's on the line with us now. This is not done, by us. He said it's a third party. They're our compliance officer, in so many ways where, they're monitoring, they monitor the data, they review the data and back it up so that, we're not just reporting what we want, right, out there. So all of that is available. All the years that we've done this is available, going back, into, I think 2019 is, I think, our first ones, but we had previous surveys from the community that we had access to as well. So feel free to cruise through the website. You're going to you'll see all that information, infographics that, Catalyst Research has helped us create, like this one just on youth marijuana use. So feel free to go about that. All of our events are posted. And then as well as when it comes to support, if you know anybody who may be interested, there's a lot of ways to get involved, whether it's social media marketing, events planner and promoter, helping us promote and plan our events, office assistant, our administrator is always looking for excuse me, someone to help her in the office, or even on the backside, just creating Excel spreadsheets, for updating with our parents or our youth. And then as far as even being a brand ambassador, maybe you're a youth and you truly believe in what we're doing. We have a social media influencer right now who is a youth out of Lancaster that runs our Instagram. So there's a million ways to get involved. Just fill out what you believe would be a great fit for you, and that would be a way to connect. And then as far as the community contributor program, maybe you don't have the resources to give $500 to up to $1,000 for that gold level, or $1,000 and above for the platinum level, and contribute that towards our foundation. But you could just $10, $20, $30 a month contribute on a monthly basis. You can stop it at any time. And that's our community contributor program. So 10 for a night, $20 for a defender, $30 to be an admiral. You get listed on the website, and you'll also be listed on all of our marketing for every single event that we do. So I don't know. It's just we're doing the very best that we can to continue to support our community as they support us. So just in the future, please reach out to us. There's a million ways to reach out to us. You can look at this report, you can connect with us on social media, you can, call me, or just, go to 4hourcommunitytoday@gmail.com and, send us an email. But, we appreciate your support. And, it's going to be another tricky year. I don't really know what we're going to see is in our data that was going to be going down right now, but I don't know. Dan, what do you think? What are we projecting for 2024? And we'll close the town hall.
Well, I think you nailed it right on the head. We don't know. Like even as researchers, we do a lot of surveys and review a lot of survey research, and things just aren't, whatever normal was in 2017, we're not even close to back to what that was. So there have been spikes in certain drug use. There's been, big declines in other substances. A lot of this is, I think, in relation to the way kids access and the ways that kids couldn't access substances during the pandemic, or may still not have access to. So it's really, the magic 8 ball is not really as useful as it normally is, because you can usually, predict out a little bit. You can model and say, this is where we think things are going. But the last few administrations of surveys that we've done, in Western New York, show that we as communities need to be as resilient as we're asking the youth to be, and be ready for anything that comes at us, because it could be something totally different this time around that shows up. I mean, I'm sure marijuana will still be on the uptick. I'm sure things like edibles, as we have the dispensary, it's right down the road from where I am, one of the only dispensaries in the state. Kids are going to find ways to get those sorts of things. So it's going to be interesting. I'm really interested to see, because we do have in the survey this time sources of where marijuana came from, if they used, and locations where they used marijuana. So I think one of the things I'm most excited to look at, I do get excited about survey data. I'm weird, but I'm excited to see where kids say they're getting marijuana from and where they say they're using it, because I think that's some invaluable information that we don't quite have our hands around yet. So I think, in short, you just got to be, it's like your guard Michael Jordan. You got to be on your toes and be ready to go in any direction at any time. So I wish I had something more definitive, but like you said, I think it's one of those situations, whereas adults and community members, we just have to continue to do our best and give our best effort to our communities, and especially to our youth. So that's my 2 cents.
Yeah, I agree. I would just say that, if you don't agree, or you don't think that any of this data or information is true, then I would just say get out there and educate yourself. And if you are concerned with some of the things that we've talked about, there's nothing wrong with going to one of the only licensed dispensary here in the county, and it's right into Pew. So go there. Talk to these people, ask about, their process. How do they know, the strength? How do they know where it's safe? How do they know it's safe? Because the more that you get educated, the more that you can be aware of maybe some of the trends that are happening within our local youth. So don't be afraid to get educated. These people went through a major process to get licensed. So they are fully aware of the process and the chain of supply and custody. So I would suggest that. And, one thing I didn't mention is I went to a weed festival myself. I went to they call it a weed fest. All right. And what I learned is that, yes, it is not, well, I know this already, but what you don't, maybe know is that it's absolutely lawful for these vape shops to gift marijuana. So they can gift whatever you want. And then they just charge you for like a sticker, a piece of marketing swag, right? T-shirts or whatever. So that is completely legal. There are people, Cheektowaga Police, who tried to shut down Green Vision Wellness. And the DA, DA Flynn is like, this is absolutely law. This is legal. They did nothing wrong, right? So just because they can do that, though, it doesn't mean that it is completely safe. So what I found from these weed festivals is that there are multiple hands that are touching these products. You got one supplier bringing in a product. You got another person, extracting the oils out of it. That person then is selling it to another guy who's going to make the edibles. And then the guy that's making the edibles packages them up real nice and drops them off at the commercial retail store, right? So just because it looks in a pretty little container and it's all sealed up, that does not mean that it's safe. And when you got this much supply or this much demand, the supply is going to be greater, right? So the demand is going to be greater.
One button on that is that,
Yeah.
and this will be my parting shot, is that with the unregulated marijuana market, it's not unlike, unregulated other substances like opioids or things like that, where one of the biggest things that you don't know about when you are consuming items, and you might not even know this from a dispensary, but at least you have, there's licensing and regulation and inspection and stuff like that. There is something called the chocolate chip cookie effect on the way that these sort of, the unofficial, these unlicensed folks make drugs. And by that, it's like, if you ever make a batch of chocolate chip cookies, there might be a cookie, if you're not very careful with the chips, there might be a cookie with 10 chips on it and a cookie with 2 chips in it, right? And this is the way that a lot of these pill presses work. This is a way that you're saying, like, the amount of THC or oil that goes into certain, whether it's edibles, that sort of thing. So you could end up with the lion's share. Let's say they put, a dropper full of whatever the substance is. You could end up with the lion's share of that dropper full in one piece of an edible. The odds are that it probably won't happen, but it's a real possibility that could happen. So you're not only risking the effects of unlicensed and unregulated and multiple hands touching a substance, but you're also risking this effect of unequal distribution between pieces within, let's say, one package. So you have to be just aware that, like you said, Gwendolyn, very succinctly, it can look like a pack of Oreos, it can look like a pack of Skittles, it can look like a pack of whatever, but really there is much more that's happening beneath the surface that you have to at least be aware of, and we have to be very concerned about for the kids. Adults, you have to be aware of, and that's a risk that you decide to take. Kids, it's a risk that we can't, we have to do our best to not allow them to take. And I think that sort of chocolate chip cookie effect is one of the things that scares me most about sort of those home, cooked up edibles and oils and that sort of thing, is that you just don't know that you're getting the same amount in every piece or every cartridge or every, wax, whatever. And that can be real dangerous for the kids. So that's just one last little piece on that.
Yeah. Thank you, Dan. Very, very, very true. So, yeah, that is my plea. Just get educated, get supported. We have amazing partners with Kids Escaping Drugs, Erie County Prevention Council, Erie County Department of Health. There's free Narcan testing, free Narcan training anywhere pretty much at all times within the county. And if you don't have Narcan, it's wise to get yourself some Narcan. And if you have teenagers that like to go to these social, these parties that these kids are, whether your kid is in Depew or Lancaster, there's kids in Alden that are getting, marketed to by kids from Lancaster, Depew, and vice versa, Cheektowaga, Buffalo, through Snapchat reels. They post a little flyer, and this is what we learned in this past, focus group. They're posting a flyer with, hey, party tonight, blah, 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 location, with little pictures of the type of drugs that are going to be there that day. And that was some of the information that we got, out of these kids. So, have your kids trained, have them bring Narcan with them, so that if anything goes down, God forbid, they're prepared. I know that, a lot of parents are like, well, that would never happen to my kid. But, wouldn't you rather be safe than sorry that, maybe your kid saves another kid's life? So, you can't put your head in the sand anymore as a parent. It's not the same world it was when we were kids. And I have teenagers. So, I'm in the midst of this. I talk to them. I talk to their friends. I get to know what's happening on the street. So, that is my plea, is to get educated. But Dan Webb, thank you so much for coming today to support us and for the past year of just really hard work for what you do for us here at Focus.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for hosting this really hopefully informative for everybody event, but I found it to be interesting and useful as always. So thanks, Gwendolyn.
Thanks, Dan. And again, for anybody who wishes to, get a hold of us, you can, get a hold of us through our website and all our social media channels, or go to 4ourcommunitytoday.com